The galaxy had always whispered about the Varkesh. They were an ancient warlike species spreading like fire through star systems, crushing anyone who resisted them. For centuries they had been silent, content with the worlds they had conquered. But now the silence ended. General Zorvac stood at the heart of his flagship, the Bloodfang. Towering over his officers, covered in armored scales, his presence filled the command hall like a storm. His eyes glowed a pale red, and his voice was a low growl that carried power. "Transmit the message to all star systems," Zorvac commanded. "Yes, General," one of his aides replied, claws trembling slightly as he worked the controls. A moment later, across thousands of worlds, the Varkesh message was broadcast. Holograms of General Zorvac appeared in markets and council chambers, even in military outposts of other species. "I am General Zorvac of the Varkesh Armada." His voice thundered. "I command 1 million soldiers, 1 million blades, 1 million weapons ready to bring the galaxy to order. Those who resist will be crushed beneath the march of my army. Those who kneel will be spared, to serve us." The galaxy reacted with fear. Civilizations that had lived in peace for centuries trembled at the thought of facing such numbers. The Varkesh were not only powerful, they were merciless. They left no room for negotiation. On Earth's frontier station orbiting the trade hub of Carthos 7, the message played on every screen. Officers and civilians stopped what they were doing, staring in silence. Humanity had only recently joined the galactic community. They were still considered young, inexperienced, and fragile compared to the older civilizations, but not everyone on the station felt fear. Captain Elias Kane leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the hologram. He was in his mid-30s, his hair cut short, his uniform sharp but worn at the edges from years of service. He had seen battles, but nothing on this scale. His face was calm, unreadable, as Zorvac's threats filled the room. Beside him, his first officer, Lieutenant Aria Morgan, shifted uncomfortably. "1 million soldiers," she said softly. "That's overwhelming." Kane's eyes narrowed. "Numbers alone don't win wars." Aria turned to him. "With respect, sir, we're talking about an army larger than anything humanity has ever faced. They've destroyed empires before. The Council of Worlds is already panicking." "Then let them panic," Kane replied. His voice was steady, even cold. "We don't have the luxury." He stood, walking to the window of the briefing room. Beyond the glass, the stars glittered like diamonds. Somewhere out there, a war was brewing, and humanity had been warned to stay out of it. A few days later, a council meeting was called on Carthos 7. Representatives of multiple species crowded into the chamber, each one desperate, voices raised, arguments clashing. "The Varkesh must be stopped before they reach the core systems," one alien delegate cried. "Then let the humans go," another sneered. "They are reckless enough to throw themselves against the impossible." A murmur went around the chamber. Humans had a reputation, even in their short time among the stars. They were bold, unpredictable, and sometimes frightening in the way they faced danger, but no one truly believed they could stand against the Varkesh. Captain Kane was there, standing in the back with a handful of his officers. He listened quietly as the debate raged. Finally, the human representative stepped forward to speak. "Earth will not sit idle," she said firmly. "We may be new here, but we will not let tyrants decide the fate of the galaxy." Laughter broke out among several of the delegates. One reptilian ambassador leaned forward, his fangs gleaming. "Your people are children. You've fought only small wars on your homeworld. You do not understand the scale of what is coming." Kane's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. He didn't need to prove anything with words. Later, back aboard his ship, the Resolute, the crew prepared for orders. The Resolute was not the largest warship in the galaxy, but it was fast, durable, and equipped with advanced human technology that other races didn't fully understand. In the war room, holograms of the Varkesh fleet flickered. Massive numbers filled the projection, row after row of ships, soldiers, weapons. The numbers alone looked impossible. Lieutenant Morgan folded her arms. "They say we should stay out of this, Captain, that the Council will handle it." Kane studied the hologram, his face lit by the pale glow. "The Council is too slow. By the time they act, the Varkesh will already have burned a dozen worlds. No, we move now." "You mean us alone?" she asked, her voice hushed. Kane turned to her, his eyes sharp. "We've fought impossible odds before. Humanity doesn't run. Not from bullies, not from conquerors. We find their weakness and we break it. Morgan stared at him for a moment, then nodded. Aye, Captain. Meanwhile, across the stars, General Zorvac stood aboard his flagship once more. Reports came in of smaller civilizations surrendering before even fighting. His confidence grew with each victory, but one report caught his attention. A Varkesh scout fleet sent to secure the outskirts near Karthos 7 had gone silent. Zorvac's brow furrowed. What happened to the scouts? He demanded. No answer came. Only static. For the first time, a shadow of curiosity flickered across his mind. Somewhere out there, someone had dared to strike against him. He bared his teeth in a cruel smile. So be it. Let them resist. Let them believe they have a chance. It will make their destruction all the sweeter. Back on the Resolute, Kane gathered his crew. We are humanity's sword, he told them. The Varkesh think their numbers make them unstoppable. They think fear is their greatest weapon. But fear is only a weapon if we let it be. And I don't intend to let it. The crew stood straighter, pride swelling in their chests. The war had not yet begun, but already the first spark had been lit. Humanity was stepping into the storm not with fear but with fire in their hearts. The black of space stretched endlessly, dotted with stars and drifting dust. In that silent void, the Resolute sailed like a predator on the hunt. Captain Elias Kane stood on the command deck, his hands resting lightly on the railing, his gaze locked on the tactical display before him. The hologram showed a formation of 20 Varkesh warships, a scout fleet, but even their scouts were the size of cities. Each vessel carried thousands of soldiers armed and eager to fight. Lieutenant Arya Morgan broke the silence. They outnumber us 20-1, sir. Kane's voice was calm. Outnumbered doesn't mean outmatched. The crew glanced at one another. Some of them were young, fresh recruits who had never seen a real battle in space. Their faces were pale, but their eyes held something else too. Trust. They trusted their captain. The enemy appears. Moments later, alarms sounded. On the forward screen, the Varkesh fleet emerged from hyperspace, massive hulks of steel and claws. Their ships looked alive, covered in jagged armor plates, with glowing red cores that pulsed like beating hearts. A deep voice filled the bridge of the Resolute. It was a Varkesh commander. His words carried on a harsh transmission. Human vessel, you are trespassing in Varkesh territory. Power down your engines and surrender or be destroyed. Kane pressed a control, his image appearing on the Varkesh flagship. He stood tall, his uniform neat, his eyes sharp. This is Captain Elias Kane of the Resolute. We don't surrender. Not today. Not ever. The Varkesh commander let out a low rumbling laugh. 1 ship against 20? You are insane. Kane's lips curved in the faintest smile. We'll see. The transmission cut. The battle begins, helm, full speed ahead, Kane ordered. Weapons, prepare for rapid strike. The Resolute shot forward, engines blazing. The Varkesh fleet opened fire. Red energy beams cutting through space like burning spears. Explosions rippled around the human vessel, but Kane's voice rang out steady. Evasive pattern Delta 3. Now. The Resolute twisted and rolled, moving with agility no Varkesh ship could match. Human engineers had built their warships differently. Fast, responsive, designed for precision instead of brute strength. The first salvo missed. The Varkesh adjusted, preparing another barrage, but Kane was already moving. Target their lead ship's engines. Fire! Blue-white lances of energy shot from the Resolute's cannons, striking the Varkesh flagship in the rear thrusters. The giant vessel shook violently, spinning out of formation. Direct hit, Captain, Morgan called. The crew cheered, but Kane's expression didn't change. He knew this was only the beginning. Playing with giants, the Varkesh regrouped quickly. 17 ships spread out, trying to encircle the lone human vessel. Kane studied the hologram, his mind working like a blade. They're slow, he murmured. Too slow to adapt. Captain, what's the plan? Morgan asked. We break the circle before it closes, Kane replied. Find their weak points. Every big ship has them. The Resolute dove sharply, sliding between 2 enemy cruisers. Their weapons fired too late, striking each other instead of the human vessel. One Varkesh ship exploded in a fiery burst. Did they just shoot themselves? One of the younger officers asked in disbelief. Kane allowed himself a thin smile. They did. Remember this. An enemy that relies on numbers is an enemy that stumbles over its own feet. The crew's morale rose. Fear turned into adrenaline, adrenaline into determination. Striking fear for hours, the Resolute danced among giants. Every move was calculated, every strike precise. A shot to a weak shield generator here, a missile into a fuel bay there. One by one, the massive Varkesh ships fell. Not all exploded. Some were left drifting, disabled, their crews panicking in the dark void. Inside the Varkesh flagship, the alien commander roared in frustration. Impossible! It is only one human ship. But the truth was clear. The humans were not fighting like anyone else in the galaxy. They weren't standing still, exchanging fire until the larger force won. They were moving, adapting, striking like hunters who knew every weakness of their prey. Back on the Resolute, Lieutenant Morgan's voice was steady now, no longer uncertain. "That's 6 ships down, sir. 4 destroyed, 2 disabled," Kane nodded. "Good, keep them guessing. Fear spreads faster than fire, a dangerous gamble." But then the Varkesh changed tactics. Instead of chasing, they began to close ranks, forming a wall of fire. Morgan frowned. "They're learning, Captain. They're forcing us into a corner." Kane studied the display. The Varkesh wall was solid but not perfect. Every formation, no matter how strong, had a crack. He just had to find it. "There," he said finally, pointing to a cluster of 3 ships. "Their shield overlap is unstable. If we hit it hard enough, the whole formation breaks. But it means flying straight into their guns," Morgan warned. Kane's eyes hardened. "Then we fly straight into their guns." The crew went silent for a moment. It sounded insane. But then one by one they nodded. They trusted him. "Helm," Kane said. "Take us in." The Resolute roared forward, shields glowing under enemy fire. Sparks flew across the bridge, consoles flickering. Crew members gritted their teeth, holding their stations. "Steady," Kane said quietly, his voice calm even as the ship shook violently.
"Steady."
At the last second he gave the order. "All weapons, fire." The Resolute unleashed everything it had. Torpedoes, cannons, railguns, all focused on a single point in the Varkesh wall. The impact was devastating. One enemy ship exploded instantly, its wreckage colliding with the 2 beside it. The wall collapsed, the formation broken. "Path is open, Captain," Morgan shouted. "Then let's finish this," Kane replied. The last enemy. With the formation broken, the Resolute struck mercilessly. Another 2 ships fell, then another. The Varkesh were crumbling, their numbers now meaningless against precision and strategy. Finally, only the flagship remained. The Varkesh commander's voice returned, but now it was filled with anger and disbelief. "Human, you dare challenge the might of the Varkesh with 1 ship?" Kane stared at the screen, his expression like stone. "You had 20 ships. Now you have 1. Numbers don't frighten me. They only give me more targets, and with that, the Resolute fired its final barrage. The Varkesh flagship erupted in flames, splitting apart in the darkness of space. The battle was over. Aftermath on the Resolute's bridge. Silence hung in the air. The crew stared at the wreckage of 20 Varkesh ships. They had done the impossible. Finally, Lieutenant Morgan broke the silence. Her voice was quiet, almost reverent. We beat them. 20-1, and we beat them." Kane turned to face his crew. His expression remained calm, but there was pride in his eyes. "Remember this moment. The Varkesh think they cannot be stopped because of their numbers. But we just showed them what 1 ship, 1 crew, 1 species can do." The crew straightened, their fear gone, replaced with determination. Far away, in the core of the Varkesh Empire, General Zorvak received the report. His claws tightened around the arm of his throne. His scouts destroyed by a single human vessel. A low growl rumbled from his chest. "So, the humans wish to challenge me." His red eyes blazed with fury. "Then let them come. I will drown them in a sea of soldiers." Space was silent again, but the calm was deceptive. Captain Elias Kane knew that the Varkesh would not forget the humiliation of losing their scout fleet. They were patient hunters, and now more than ever, they would come for humanity with everything they had. The Resolute had returned to human-controlled space to resupply and repair. The crew moved like a well-oiled machine, checking systems, recalibrating weapons, and running simulations. Yet Kane's mind was already ahead, calculating the next steps. Lieutenant Arya Morgan approached the captain in the command hall, her face tense. "Captain, intelligence reports show multiple Varkesh fleets are moving toward the outer colonies. Estimates put their combined forces at over 200,000 soldiers." Kane leaned on the rail, his gaze on the starfield beyond the station. 200,000 or 200,000 opportunities. Morgan blinked. Opportunities? Kane's lips curved slightly. Yes, every soldier has a weakness. Every army has a flaw. The Varkesh rely on brute force, numbers, and fear. That's their strength, and their downfall. We'll exploit it. Morgan frowned but did not argue. She had learned long ago that Kane's methods were unconventional, but effective. Preparing the battlefield, human engineers worked day and night to retrofit the Resolute with new technology. Sensors were upgraded to detect weak points in enemy ships. Missiles were calibrated for precision strikes. Every system, from navigation to weapons, was fine-tuned for agility, deception, and strategy. Kane walked the corridors, speaking to each officer. We are not just fighting ships. We are fighting minds. The Varkesh think they understand war, but they do not understand us. He stopped before the communications officer, a young man named Lee. Lee, I want every Varkesh transmission monitored. Listen to their strategies, predict their moves. Humans are adaptable. Let's use their predictability against them. Lee nodded, eyes wide with determination. Yes, Captain. Even the youngest crew members felt the change. Fear had been replaced with purpose. They were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to show the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated. First contact within days. The Varkesh attacked again. This time 3 fleets converged near the Orion Gate, a critical trade route. Their ships moved like a wall of jagged metal, each one carrying thousands of soldiers. Here we go, Kane muttered, his hands gripping the railing. Show me their weaknesses. The Resolute moved like a shadow, slipping through gaps in the Varkesh formation. Kane didn't just attack, he observed. He noted how their ships reacted to maneuvers, how their shields fluctuated where their engines were vulnerable. Morgan pointed to the tactical display. They're forming a triangle. If they close it, we'll be trapped. Good, Kane replied. Let them think they're trapping us. Fear is a weapon, but so is overconfidence. We'll use both. Turning numbers into liability, the battle began in earnest. The Varkesh opened fire, and the Resolute danced between beams of red energy, twisting and diving with impossible precision. Kane's crew operated like one mind, firing missiles only where they counted the most. In moments, the smaller fleets began to falter. Kane had identified the weak points in the triangle. One by one, he struck, first a supply ship, then an engine cluster, then a command module. Each strike was surgical, causing chain reactions among the tightly packed Varkesh ships. Panic began to spread. The Varkesh soldiers were trained to follow orders, but they were not trained to think, to adapt to cunning tactics. Kane watched the display, his eyes cold and calculating. They think their numbers are infinite, he said quietly. But numbers without strategy are meaningless. Psychological warfare beyond physical attacks. Kane introduced a new weapon. Fear. He used the Resolute's stealth systems to appear in unexpected locations, firing shots from directions the Varkesh couldn't predict. The fleet commander began issuing frantic orders, but Kane had already anticipated them. Morgan frowned. Captain, they're starting to retreat, disorganized. Their soldiers are confused. They've never faced this before. Exactly, Kane said. This isn't just a battle of ships. It's a battle of minds. They rely on predictability. We've turned it against them. Watch closely. Fear spreads faster than fire. The Varkesh fleet broke formation, some ships colliding with each other, some exploding under misfired weapons. Kane exploited every opening. His strikes were precise, each one calculated to amplify confusion. By the end of the day, the 3 fleets were crippled. Only a handful of ships remained operational, and even those moved cautiously, uncertain of what might come next. A galactic statement, news of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Alien civilizations who had dismissed humanity began to watch closely. The stories were everywhere. One human ship, outnumbered hundreds to one, had dismantled 3 Varkesh fleets. On several worlds, beings whispered in astonishment, "Humans are dangerous." Kane didn't celebrate. He knew this was only the beginning. He called a meeting with his senior officers aboard the Resolute. Listen carefully, he said. The Varkesh are proud, but they are not invincible. They rely on brute force, fear, and numbers. They do not understand us, and that is our advantage. Every strike we make now is not just physical, it's a message. Humanity is not weak. Humanity will fight back. Morgan leaned forward. Captain, you're saying we can take them on, even with millions of soldiers waiting? Kane's gaze was steady. Millions of soldiers are only numbers. They are not strategy. They are not courage. They are not human. And we have all three. The enemy reacts far across the stars in the heart of the Varkesh Empire. General Zorvak roared with fury. He slammed his claws onto the arm of his throne, shaking the floor beneath him. Impossible, he bellowed. How can one human ship destroy hundreds of my soldiers? His advisors trembled, fearful of his wrath. General, the human. They are cunning, unpredictable. Their fleet may be small, but their tactics— Silence! Zorvak's voice echoed through the chamber. I will crush them. I will drown them in soldiers. I will show them that no human, no species can defy the Varkesh. Even as he spoke, a seed of doubt had planted itself in his mind. One human ship had done what thousands of soldiers should have prevented. If humans could win once, could they win again? Humanity strikes back. Meanwhile, Kane prepared for the next encounter. He didn't just plan for battles. He planned for entire campaigns. Every fleet movement, every strategy was designed to exploit the Varkesh's reliance on fear and numbers. He called his crew together in the briefing room. We've shown the Varkesh that humans do not fear numbers. We've shown them that one ship can strike like a storm, but now we must do more. We must take the fight to them. Not just react, but lead. The crew listened, eyes wide but determined. They knew what was coming. They knew the odds were terrible, but they also knew who their captain was. Kane's voice softened just enough to inspire. This war is not just for humanity. It is for every civilization that has been afraid of the Varkesh. We fight not just with weapons, but with courage, with strategy, with heart. And that is something no army, no matter how many soldiers it has, can ever take away from us. A galaxy. Watching across the galaxy, the news spread. Worlds that had ignored humans before were now taking note. Mercenary fleets hesitated before engaging Varkesh patrols. Traders altered routes, giving space for humanity to move freely. In quiet corners of star systems, leaders whispered among themselves, if humans can do this with one ship, what could they do with an entire fleet? Kane didn't care about fame. He cared about survival, and about sending a message. Humans were not pawns. Humans were not weak. Humans were a force that demanded respect. The stars burned cold and silent, but the quiet was deceptive. Somewhere beyond the Orion Gate, the Varkesh were gathering, armadas bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Elias Kane knew the numbers were overwhelming, but fear had no place on the bridge of the Resolute. He walked among his officers, calm and measured, as they prepared the ship for the coming storm. We are not just a single vessel anymore, he said, his voice carrying authority. We are humanity's spear, and today that spear will strike deep into the heart of the enemy. Lieutenant Arya Morgan studied the tactical display. Captain, intelligence estimates more than 300,000 Varkesh soldiers in this cluster alone. They will crush us, Kane shook his head. They only think their numbers are unbeatable. They don't understand strategy, precision, or fearlessness. We will show them the cost of underestimating humanity. The crew exchanged glances, some anxious, some inspired. They had already faced the impossible once. Now they were ready to face it again. Rallying the allies, Kane knew the Resolute could not fight the entire Varkesh force alone. He began contacting nearby civilizations, those who had hesitated before, appealing to their common enemy. Listen, Kane said during a holographic council. The Varkesh don't negotiate. They don't reason. They only conquer. Every species has lost worlds to them. But humanity has a strategy, and it works. If we fight together, we can stop them. Not with numbers, but with brains, courage, and tactics. At first, the council was skeptical, but Kane demonstrated human ingenuity. Small fleets taking down larger Varkesh forces using strategy, ambushes, and precise strikes. Slowly, alien fleets joined the cause. By the time Kane set a course for the Varkesh staging ground, he had gathered a coalition fleet, humans and a dozen other species, all inspired by his tactics and courage. Morgan leaned over the holographic display, eyes wide. Captain, this is the largest combined force in history. Humanity is leading it. Kane smiled faintly. Numbers alone don't win battles. Leadership and strategy do, and right now we lead. First strike. The fleet approached Varkesh territory cautiously. Sensors detected scouting ships ahead, but Kane didn't panic. We will strike with precision. Every shot counts. Remember, we are not fighting blindly. He ordered the fleet to split into smaller units, each attacking specific weak points in the enemy formation. Missiles, railguns, and laser strikes targeted supply ships, fuel depots, and shield generators. The Varkesh were confident, expecting a large human fleet to attack head-on. But Kane's strategy was different. Instead of brute force, the humans and their allies moved like a predator, striking at the heart of the enemy, disappearing before retaliation. For hours, space burned with fire and explosions. The Varkesh were shocked. Never had they faced an enemy that turned numbers against them. Supplies and ships crumbled, and confusion spread through their ranks. Turning weakness into advantage, Kane studied the battlefield with cold precision. The Varkesh relied heavily on strict formations. Their fleets were powerful but rigid. The human fleet exploited every flaw. Notice their triangle formation, Kane said. Their lead ships rely on the rear for backup. If we target the middle, the whole formation collapses. Morgan hesitated. That's risky, sir. If we fail... We won't fail, Kane interrupted. We do not fight blindly. We fight smart. Fire on my mark. When the moment came, missiles and energy beams struck simultaneously. The middle Varkesh ships exploded, sending shockwaves through the rest of the fleet. Ships collided, shields failed, and soldiers panicked. The once imposing Varkesh wall was breaking. The tide turns. With the Varkesh formation fractured, Kane ordered the Allied fleets to strike in coordinated waves. Humans and aliens moved in perfect sync, a choreographed assault that turned chaos into a weapon. A massive Varkesh cruiser attempted to flank the human fleet, but the Resolute anticipated the move. Kane ordered a feint. 2 human ships drew the cruiser forward while the main fleet struck its rear engines. The cruiser erupted in flames, scattering its soldiers into space. Morgan's voice trembled with awe. Captain, they're falling apart. Their numbers. It doesn't matter. Kane's expression was calm as always. Numbers never mattered. Strategy matters. Courage matters. Humanity matters. Zorvak's fury across the galaxy. General Zorvak roared in anger. The reports of his fleet's destruction reached him, each one a dagger to his pride. Impossible, he shouted. His massive claws slammed into the floor of his throne room, cracking the stone. How can one species and one ship cause this much chaos? His advisors tried to explain, but he wouldn't listen. I want every Varkesh soldier ready. I want no mercy. I will crush them all, every last human, every last ally. But Zorvak had underestimated the humans, and now he realized he had underestimated their ability to lead others. Kane had turned fear into hope, desperation into strategy. The galaxy was watching, and that was the real danger. Exploiting chaos back on the battlefield, Kane pressed the attack. He divided the fleet into smaller groups, hitting scattered Varkesh ships and forcing them to divide their forces further. Every engagement was calculated, every strike intentional. Even with thousands of enemy soldiers, Kane's precision strikes created panic. Soldiers didn't know where to fire, commanders didn't know which threat to address, and morale began to crumble. Morgan watched the tactical display in disbelief. Captain, they're retreating, they're deserting ships, they're breaking ranks. Exactly, Kane said, calm but firm. This is how wars are won, not with brute force, but by turning the enemy against itself. Numbers are meaningless if the soldiers are afraid and confused. Humanity's reputation grows across Allied fleets, morale soared. Aliens who had once doubted humans now fought with renewed courage, inspired by Kane's leadership and humanity's tenacity. Messages of victory spread to other systems. Worlds that had remained neutral now offered supplies, reinforcements, and intelligence. Humanity was no longer the young, inexperienced species that the galaxy had ignored. They were a symbol of hope and a warning to the Varkesh. On the Resolute, Kane gathered his officers. We have done more than survive, he said. We have turned fear into opportunity. We have shown the galaxy what humanity can do. But this war is not over. The Varkesh will regroup. They will return. And when they do, we will be ready. The calm before the storm. As the fleet regrouped, Kane took a moment to walk the ship. He watched his crew move with purpose, repairing systems, recalibrating weapons, and preparing for the next engagement. Each officer, each sailor, each soldier knew they were part of something bigger than themselves. Morgan joined him, her face reflecting both exhaustion and pride. Captain, how did you know we could do this, even when we faced impossible odds? Kane's eyes were steady. Because humans don't give up. Because humans adapt. Because humans fight not just with weapons but with hearts and minds. We've faced worse and survived. This is no different. Morgan nodded, understanding that humanity's strength was more than technology or numbers. It was in their courage, their creativity, and their refusal to surrender. The galaxy watches far beyond the battle. Across distant star systems, leaders of other species whispered in awe. Humans had faced the impossible and prevailed. They had turned one ship into a spear, one crew into a symbol, and numbers into weakness. In the dark heart of the Varkesh Empire, Zorvac seethed. He had thrown everything at the humans and failed. His army of millions had faltered, broken by strategy, courage, and unpredictability. He roared into the void, vowing vengeance. The humans will not escape me. They think numbers are meaningless. I will show them power. I will show them death. And when I am finished, the galaxy will tremble again. But deep in his mind, a seed of doubt had grown. Humanity was not just brave, they were cunning, fearless, and capable of turning overwhelming odds into opportunity. The darkness of space stretched endlessly, a void that hid both danger and opportunity. Captain Elias Kane stood on the bridge of the Resolute, eyes scanning the stars ahead. This was it, the final engagement. The Varkesh had regrouped, amassing what they hoped would be an unstoppable force. Yet Kane remained calm, unshaken. "Captain," Lieutenant Arya Morgan said, her voice steady despite the tension. "They've deployed nearly 500,000 soldiers. They've brought everything they have." Kane nodded, expression unreadable. "Then we will show them everything we have. Remember, they have numbers. We have strategy. They have fear. We have courage. They will see which is stronger." The crew of the Resolute moved like a single organism, checking weapons, shields, and engines. This was no longer just a human crew. They were the spearhead of a galaxy-wide coalition, leading fleets from dozens of worlds. Every ship under Kane's command shared the same purpose: outthink, outmaneuver, and outfight the Varkesh. The Varkesh strike. From the darkness ahead, the Varkesh appeared in force. Thousands of ships formed a jagged, unbroken line, each one bristling with weapons. Energy beams streaked across space, preparing to cut down anything in their path. General Zorvac's voice boomed across communications, filled with hatred and arrogance. "Human, you have defied the might of the Varkesh. You have humiliated me, and now you will die. Every soldier, every ship, every ally will burn." Kane's response was calm, almost casual. "We'll see who burns first." The fleets collided like titans in the void. Explosions painted the darkness in red and blue streaks. The Resolute weaved through enemy fire with precision unmatched by any Varkesh ship. Kane's eyes scanned the battlefield, calculating, anticipating. "Target their command ships," he ordered. "Hit the supply lines. Keep their fleets in chaos. Don't give them a moment to regroup." Morgan watched in awe as the human-led fleet moved as one. Ships attacked from multiple angles, striking weak points and disappearing before retaliation. The Varkesh were strong but inflexible. Their numbers became a liability. Breaking the horde, Kane identified the central Varkesh formation. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers relied on strict coordination. He knew that if he could break the center, the rest would crumble. "All units focus on the central command cluster. Timing is everything," Kane said. The attack was daring. Human and allied ships darted into the center, dodging fire from every direction. Precision strikes destroyed shield generators, knocked out engines, and set off chain reactions among tightly packed ships. One by one, Varkesh vessels exploded or drifted helplessly in space. Soldiers aboard panicked, firing at each other or abandoning their posts. Kane's strategy was working. The horde was breaking itself. Morgan's voice trembled with excitement. "Captain, they're losing cohesion. They're soldiers. They're turning on each other." "Good," Kane replied. "Confusion is as powerful as any weapon." Zorvac's last stand, General Zorvac, watching the destruction unfold from his flagship, seethed with rage. His massive claws clenched, shaking the floor beneath him. "No, this cannot be," he growled. He ordered all remaining forces to converge on the Resolute. His flagship roared forward, a living fortress of claws and fire. "Human, face me! I will crush you with my own hands." Kane watched the massive ship approach. "So he finally comes himself," he said softly. "Good. One target is easier than 1,000,000. The Resolute moved with deadly grace, dodging incoming fire and weaving between debris from destroyed Varkesh vessels. Kane coordinated strikes with the Allied fleet, each attack precise and devastating. When the human ship struck the flagship, it rocked violently. Zorvak's confidence began to falter as his soldiers were thrown into chaos. Kane's words echoed through his mind. Numbers are meaningless if your soldiers are afraid. The final engagement, Kane took the Resolute straight toward Zorvak's flagship, flanked by the fastest Allied ships. Missiles, lasers, and railguns fired in perfect harmony, striking weak points on the massive vessel. Morgan's voice was tense. "Captain, we're taking heavy fire." "Hold steady," Kane replied. "All focus on the core, one shot at a time." The flagship shuddered under repeated hits. The bridge shook violently. Zorvak roared in fury, but no one answered him anymore. His fleet was gone, scattered by Kane's strategy. Finally, Kane gave the order. "Fire everything!" The combined firepower of humanity and its allies struck the flagship simultaneously. Energy beams tore through armor. Missiles detonated in the heart of the ship and the engines failed catastrophically. The Varkesh flagship exploded, a massive shockwave throwing debris in every direction. Zorvak's roar faded into silence. For the first time in history, he had been defeated, not by numbers but by tactics, courage, and determination. Humanity prevails. The battle was over. The remaining Varkesh ships either surrendered or retreated into the void. Across the galaxy, the news spread. Humans had faced the might of the Varkesh and won. On the Resolute, Kane's crew stared at the remnants of the battlefield. Thousands of ships destroyed, hundreds of thousands of soldiers defeated, and yet, the human ship and its crew were intact. Morgan approached Kane, her eyes shining with pride. "Captain, we did it. We actually did it." Kane looked at the stars, calm but resolute. "Yes, but remember this, we didn't win because we were bigger, stronger, or more numerous. We won because we thought, we adapted, and we never gave up. Humanity doesn't need to match numbers to win. We just need to know where to strike." The galaxy awakens across countless worlds. Leaders and citizens alike watched in awe. Humans had not only survived, they had led. They had turned the tide of war, proving that courage, intelligence, and heart were stronger than armies of millions. In the Council of Worlds, diplomats whispered urgently, "Humans, they are not a species to underestimate." The young and inexperienced species had become a symbol, a reminder that even against impossible odds, determination and strategy could overcome raw power. Even Zorvak's surviving forces carried the lesson. Humanity was not to be challenged lightly. Kane's message after the battle. Kane addressed the fleet and all allied species via the communication network. His voice was calm, but it carried across light years like steel. The Varkesh thought numbers would win. They thought fear would control us. They were wrong. We are humans. We adapt, we fight, and we survive. Today we have not only defended ourselves, but we have shown the galaxy that courage, intelligence, and determination are the greatest weapons any species can have. Cheering erupted across human and allied ships. They had witnessed history, led by one captain and one ship that had turned the impossible into victory. The aftermath in the quiet that followed, Kane walked among his crew. Soldiers, engineers, and officers all looked to him with respect and admiration. He did not boast. He only nodded, acknowledging their courage, skill, and loyalty. Morgan spoke softly, almost in awe. "Captain, they will never forget this, humanity. We've changed the galaxy." Kane looked at her, his eyes steady. "No, Morgan. We didn't change the galaxy. We reminded it that humans do not give up. That humans can face any odds and come out stronger. That is the real power." The Resolute turned toward home, carrying a crew forever changed and a story that would be told for generations. Humanity had proven itself, not with overwhelming numbers but with heart, courage, and precision.